Hello. Um, in this third video, I'm going to talk about my experience I had on 3 separate occasions with plant medicine called 5-MeO DMT. If you're here for the first time and you landed on this video, I highly recommend you go to the first video. I'll put the link in the description because this video series I'm going to be sharing is like a movie. You have to watch it from beginning to end to have a full understanding. Okay, yeah. So like I said, I sat with this medicine on 3 separate occasions. The first time I did it, as I said in my first video, I smoked it, and the best way I can describe it is it's very difficult to articulate this in language terms, especially for people that don't understand, things about frequencies and vibrations and what that. So basically what 5-MeO does is it sends you for a short period of time, to extremely high levels of frequency, based off the map of consciousness, which I explained in my last video, the second video. And so what happened in my first session was, best way I can describe it, it was like I was in, if you lie in a bed and you put like a black sheet over your head, you can kind of see through if the light is on. You can see that there's light coming through the black sheet. This was like I was in a black cocoon. And there was like fractals of different color lights, permeating slightly. I would say, 95% of this was just black. And but it felt like I went into an unconscious state. It wasn't like when I smoked it and I was conscious of everything in the beginning. No, it was almost like I went into an unconscious state, and then this emerged where I was in like a black cocoon, and then there were these fractals of different color lights all over. And then I felt like it was an energy wave. So it was like black, but on the outside of this black, it was like light, like yellow light kind of energy that was on the outside of this black wave that was pumping up. I'm assuming coming from the body, because that's where all this energy is stored: trauma, stress, whatever. That's as I've mentioned in my previous videos, all this black was coming from at the bottom. And then in my mind, now this wasn't like a voice, like I actually heard it, but it's more like an intuitive kind of information that just comes in. It said to me, I knew it was hate. And I was so shocked because, I considered myself a pretty good person. And like I said, it was before I knew all of this stuff. And I was like pretty shocked, and I was taken back. And then I was shown that I wasn't ready. And then I came out of the experience. And obviously, I was still, the effects of the psychedelic was still taking course, and took about 10-15 minutes to completely come off of it after I opened my eyes and the experience was over. And then what followed on the next week, I didn't feel right. And I went to work, and I started to get a migraine. Now there was only one period of my life for 2 years in high school, and when I was a teenager, where I had migraines only. And after I did this plant medicine for the first time, I started to get a migraine on one specific day. I can't remember what day of the week it was. I think it was Monday or Tuesday after that weekend when I did it. And so that's basically that scenario after that first session. The second time I did it, this is where things started to get really intense. When you see in a movie when somebody is possessed and there's like an exorcism being performed on them, and they're going into these different convulsions, and they're growling and whatever. This was similar to that. This is what it felt like to me. Whether it was audible externally or it was just inside of my being, I don't know, but I was growling. This was like aggressive, very violent anger, rage, energy that was like, it was being sucked out of me. It's the best way I can describe it. It was like pumping out of me. And my arms and my legs were like, I was lying on bed flat, and my arms and my legs were lifted up like this in the air, because the way that the force of this energy was being sucked out of me, to me is the reason why my arms and my legs were going up like this. And as the session started to end, visually I could actually see now all this permeating black leftover residue of what I know now as frequency and energy that was leaving my energy field and body. And when that took place, I burst into tears. I cried like I've never cried before. This was like deep, where you're struggling to even breathe. And I mean, I can't remember the last time I actually cried like that. It was crazy. And then that's when things really started to change. It's like it's almost like I let go of enough to allow more good things to come in, because like I mentioned in my first video, for 20 years, I felt completely depleted. You can go watch that video to get context of what I said about that. And so things really started to change in myself, my perception about myself, about people around me, even the job that I was doing at the time. And that so it's like a 1 year period, 12 months, as my wife, she's going to join me in a video or two, or maybe more in the future, and we can discuss that, and she can actually give you her view on how I changed in those 12 months. And then I just started receiving different information. People talk about manifestation and law of attraction, like this happened by default. Like I wasn't even trying, but it's and also I was also doing utilizing different tools and practices that was obviously also helping with this whole process in those 12 months, which is also what's going to be shared on this channel in the future. And just different information started coming my way. My intuition became sharp. My mind became very different. Like I used to have a mind, judgmental mind, judging other people by default. I always felt like people didn't like me, or they had a problem with me, or they were talking bad about me. It was almost like a paranoia kind of way of thinking. And I used to be very irritable, and like I said, when you go watch the first video, I mentioned how I became very antisocial, which stretched on, for those 20 years that I speak about. And so then my intuition started becoming sharp. I was more understanding. I started to see things more clearly. And, like I said, a lot of this different information started coming my way, which is what I was learning. Good information that I kind of got the feeling like, it was like an initiation into this process of self-discovery, healing, and spiritual growth. And then all this information was coming my way in order to, escalate that and further that process. And yes, that went on for 12 months. And but then I will admit I became a bit too overconfident. I thought I was over the worst, and I thought I had gotten rid of almost all, if not all, or most of it, most of the baggage that I had, trauma, toxic energy, toxic emotions and all that stuff, because I did. I really, I felt very different, and compared to what I was. And I could even see this in my job, because I felt a certain way in the beginning about my job and about the people and about myself working there. And then, going into this process over those 12 months, my perception changed. So that was like confirmation, like being in the same work environment and having such a contrast in perception and understanding of people and yourself, and going from completely, totally unhappy to like, okay, neutral about the same job. And then, like I said, I was too overconfident. I decided to do it a third time just to see my progress on how far I had, gone and what I had done. And this was when I was shown the deeper parts of, all the electromagnetic, toxic energy and trauma and everything that goes with that. And this is when it was revealed to me things that happened to me when I was younger, because, like I said, there's universal knowledge. There's some quantum physics scientists or whatever, they talk about that there's a quantum database where there's all the information, all the knowledge, information, answers is in this level. And that's the thing that makes sense for me, because I was shown, I knew things that happened to me when I was young that I obviously had forgotten when I was, up until 3-4 years old. And and I was this, like, if you think that the energy that I felt and I let go of in the second session was anything, this was the darkest stuff you can imagine. And this is when it was revealed to me about this curse. And then I confirmed this with somebody in my family after that experience, which confirmed the whole situation about the curse. And I was shown once again I wasn't ready. It's because this is such a deep-rooted trauma, childhood trauma, and like I mentioned in the previous second video about unprocessed emotions and trauma, what it does and how it gets stuck inside of the body. So if we don't process things properly, then this is what happens. But obviously that's why childhood trauma is like one of the worst, is because you're too young to process those things in a correct way. And but anyway, that was part of it. I had to be shown that, because that was one of the most important parts of this whole journey that we're on, is facing and becoming aware that trauma is a huge thing. And that's where we need to focus on first, is to fix that, and then the other stuff. Like, all the work I had done in the 12 months had really positive impacts. On the consciousness scale that I showed in the second video, of going from up to 600, it actually goes up to 1,000. I had pushed myself up that scale quite dramatically. And if you want to know how, there's one technique, which is also what Dr. Hawkins mentions in his book, Power vs. Force, that you can actually check that. And so then that was obviously the start of a whole new chapter, where I had to, find that information. But once again, that information came my way. And because my mind was so much more sharper, people talk about like information downloads, where you just keep on downloading information, like I mentioned about that quantum database. Some people call it Akashic Records, I think. There's different names for it, doesn't matter. And so I was able to discern from which information was relevant, which wasn't. And that's one of the side effects of, doing this process. Like, your mind changes completely. Like, a lot of people and a lot of these gurus, they talk about, oh, how you need to change your mind first. And then when you have been through so much stuff, to try to take a knife to a gunfight, as I say, it's impossible. You need to actually get to the root of the problem, and your mind changes by default. Yeah, so that's basically the 3 sessions that I sat with the 5-MeO. And yeah, I will see you in the next video. Take care.